Welcome to another deep dive. We're heading to Crow Wing State Park in Minnesota today. We've got websites and a Wikipedia article, even a YouTube video tour and some park signage. So get ready for some history, nature, and recreation.
This park is actually at the confluence of the Crow Wing and Mississippi rivers. It's been a natural crossroads for centuries, drawing people to it.
Oh yeah, the rivers are super important. But I was surprised to find out that it's located on an outwash plain. Like, it was shaped by this ancient glacial lake, Grantsburg, right?
That's right. You can imagine this huge lake full of meltwater from the glaciers. And as that lake drained away, it left behind sand and gravel. And that formed the flat landscape that we see today.
So we've got this natural crossroads shaped by glaciers. It makes you wonder what kind of human stories happen there. And Crow Wing State Park has a pretty dramatic past.
Yeah, it does. So let's go back to 1768. The Dakota and Ojibwe tribes were fighting for control. The Dakota had raided an Ojibwe village, and they were trying to escape down the Mississippi with captives.
But they got ambushed.
Yeah, they did. The Ojibwe warriors dug rifle pits on this high bank overlooking the river, and as the Dakota canoes came by, the Ojibwe attacked. And here's the really fascinating part. The Ojibwe women who were captives, they actually helped in their own rescue. They overturned the canoes, created chaos, and swam to shore.
That's amazing. What a story.
Yeah.
So this battle, it's known as the Battle of 1768. It must have had a big impact.
It did. It basically solidified Ojibwe control of the area. And if you go to the park today, you can still see those rifle pits. It's a real reminder of that event.
Wow. So from a battleground to a booming town, Crow Wing has seen some changes. I read that in the 1850s, Old Crow Wing became a really key stop on the Red River trails. It was attracting traders and settlers.
Yeah, those trails were so important for trade. They went all the way from Minnesota to the Red River Valley in Canada. Just imagine all those ox carts full of furs and supplies going through Crow Wing.
So there were fur traders, merchants, families. Crow Wing was like a little frontier town. It's hard to believe that kind of town could just disappear.
Yeah.
What happened?
Well, in 1871, the railroad bypassed Crow Wing, and they went through Brainerd instead, which is only 10 miles north. And that was pretty much it for Crow Wing.
It's amazing how one decision can change things so much. So what's left of this town?
There's only one building still standing from that time, the Clement Bewley House. It was built in 1849, and it's been restored. You can visit it and see what life was like back then.
That sounds really cool. The sources also mention a boardwalk. Is that original?
It's a replica, but it shows what the commercial district would have looked like. All those shops and horses and traders.
I bet you can almost hear them. So Crow Wing has been a battlefield, a boom town, and a ghost town. What a history. But let's talk about the nature there.
Well, Crow Wing State Park is a really special place. It's where 3 different Minnesota biomes come together: prairie, hardwood forests, and pine stands, all mixed with wetlands.
I read that these 3 biomes hardly ever converge like this. What kind of effect does that have?
It makes it super diverse. You could be hiking through a pine forest, and then suddenly you're in a prairie, and then you come across a wetland.
So many different plants and animals.
Exactly. There are white-tailed deer, black bears, coyotes, foxes, raccoons, squirrels, beavers, and tons of birds.
It's amazing that so much wildlife can live in one area. So besides looking at the scenery and the wildlife, what else can you do there?
Well, there are 18 miles of hiking trails, and some of them are paved, so you can bike too. You can canoe or kayak on the rivers, go fishing or camping.
And they have a camper cabin, right?
Yep. It's a good option if you want something a little more comfortable.
It all sounds amazing. If I wanted one amazing view, where should I go?
You should go to the Chippewa Lookout. You can see the Crow Wing and Mississippi rivers, the forests, the outwash plain. It's incredible.
I can picture it. So we've got ancient glaciers, a frontier town, a battle, and all this nature. Crow Wing State Park is an amazing place.
It really is. And it makes you think, you know? A bustling town can turn into a ghost town just like that. So how do we make sure the places we love today will still be here tomorrow?
That's a really good question. We saw how the railroad changed everything for Crow Wing. How do we balance progress with protecting these special places?
That's something to think about. We'll talk more about that in the next part of our deep dive. So Crow Wing State Park isn't just about the past, you know? It's also about the ecosystem that's there today. Remember how we were talking about those 3 biomes? They make it a really unique landscape. It's definitely worth exploring.
Yeah, for sure. So what are some good hikes?
Well, if you want something short with great views, the Hiking Club Trail is a good one. It takes you along the bluffs, and you get these amazing views of the Mississippi River Valley.
That sounds nice. What if I want something more challenging?
Then I would recommend the River Trail. It goes through all kinds of different habitats, forests, meadows, everything. You really get a sense of the park's diversity.
I can imagine. All those forests and birds. Speaking of which, you mentioned black bears earlier. Is there anything visitors need to know about that?
Yeah, definitely. You have to remember you're in their home. So be aware of your surroundings, make noise when you're hiking, and store your food properly. And never, ever approach or feed a bear.
Good advice. You also mentioned that some trails are paved. Which ones are good for biking?
The paved section of the river trail is popular. It's a nice, smooth ride. And you can actually bike all the way to Brainerd on the Paul Bunyan State Trail.
So you can hike, bike, or even paddle. There are so many ways to see the park. What about camping?
They have regular campsites and a camper cabin, so there's something for everyone.
I love camping.
Right.
Sitting around the campfire at night, it's so peaceful.
It is. And if you're looking for a quiet place to think, you should definitely check out the Chippewa Lookout. It's not just about the view, it's about connecting with the history and the nature of the place.
That sounds amazing. So Crow Wing State Park has all these amazing experiences. But let's go back to that idea of sustainability. How can we, as visitors, make sure this park is still here for future generations?
That's a really important question. I think it starts with being mindful, like following leave no trace principles, staying on the trails, packing out your trash, respecting the wildlife.
Right, being responsible.
Yeah.
Are there any conservation efforts happening at the park?
Oh yeah, a bunch. They're working on restoring the prairie, controlling invasive species, and protecting the water quality. You might even see some volunteers working on this project.
That's good to hear. It shows that people care about this place.
They do, and we can all do our part, whether it's supporting organizations, volunteering, or just learning more about these issues.
It's about understanding that these places are important, and we have to protect them.
Exactly. It's not just about the environment itself, it's about making sure our kids and grandkids can enjoy these places too. Imagine if they couldn't hike in a forest or paddle on a river. That would be terrible.
Yeah, it would. So we need to take action. We've talked about practical things we can do, but I think there's more to it than that.
I agree. It's about feeling connected to these places, not just as visitors, but as caretakers. It's about understanding the history, the ecology, the connections between everything.
It's about going deeper than just enjoying the view.
Yeah, and it's about sharing that with other people, inspiring them to care about these places too.
So as we finish up this part of our deep dive, I think the main takeaway is that it's not just about visiting Crow Wing State Park. It's about understanding it, appreciating it, and being a part of its future.
That's a great way to put it. These places are living reminders of the past, and what happens to them is up to us.
Wow, we've learned so much about Crow Wing State Park. From glaciers to boom towns, battles, and nature. It's incredible. What surprised you the most?
I think the story about those Ojibwe women during the battle, the ones who were captured, their courage and quick thinking really changed things. It reminds you that there are so many unsung heroes in history.
That's so true. We tend to focus on the big names, but it's the individual stories that really make a place come alive. Speaking of capturing the spirit of a place, I know you love photography. What advice would you give someone who wants to photograph Crow Wing State Park?
Oh, it's a great place for photography. The most important thing is the light. Early mornings and late afternoons have the best light. You get those long shadows and that golden glow. And don't be afraid to try different angles. Get low to the ground for wildflowers or go up to the Chippewa lookout for those big views.
That's great advice. It's all about seeing things in a new way. One more thing I wanted to ask about is accessibility. What resources are there for visitors with disabilities?
Crow Wing State Park is really committed to accessibility. The visitor center, the Bewley House, and some of the trails are wheelchair accessible. And they have accessible campsites and restrooms too. You can check their website for the latest information.
That's good to know. Everyone should be able to experience this park. So as we wrap up our deep dive, what's the one thing you want our listeners to remember about Crow Wing State Park?
I think it's this. Crow Wing is more than just a place to visit. It's a place to connect with history, with nature, with yourself. It's a place to discover new things, to appreciate the power of nature, and to be inspired to protect our natural heritage.
That's beautiful. It's a reminder that there are still places where we can escape and reconnect, even in today's world.
Exactly. So I encourage everyone to visit Crow Wing State Park, walk the trails, breathe the air, listen to the wind, and discover your own stories.
Who knows, maybe you'll find something amazing, something that will stay with you forever. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Crow Wing State Park. We hope you enjoyed it.